Ready.
Okay, well, we're back. We haven't done this in a while. I'm Larry Stein, Stein on Stuttering, with my friend Lois Cookie Green from Stuttering to Confidence. And our question of the week, I can't wait. What is it, Cookie?
Wow, this is a good one. I want to find out, how did you get started? What is the process? I know that you can say that, I wish I didn't stutter. I wish I could speak more smoothly. I wish I could, speak fluent. I want to know, what is your process? Tell me about the hard work that you have to put in. I want to know. Tell me the process and why
Yeah.
is it vital?
Yeah. So, thanks. So, you put it exactly. I wish that I could talk was something I said to myself at probably every birthday since I could remember. And from the time you know, and nothing really came of that. I did go to speech therapy at, two of the finest institutions, universities in the country, in the US, and nothing really clicked there. And then, but over time, my speech improved my 30s and 40s because I was in the workforce and I was finally talking, I was out there. I could always do little small talk,
Yeah.
but then I was improving, and I was able to engage more in conversation, easy conversation. And then in my mid 50s, I was actually 54. I went off in my own business and began my own firm. It was always my dream. Frankly, it was because no one else would hire me at that point, and which is a very difficult thing to accept. And after a year, I realized I had a great time, and I realized that I have to get more clients, or I'm going to be out of business. Because I had kids in private colleges and all that stuff, private universities. It's very expensive, and so I was kind of my back against the wall, and I realized something, that I could public speak better than I could speak. So I had in speech therapy, this was decades earlier as a kid, this 40 years ago, I did learn phrasing and then pause between the phrases.
Right.
And so I had this little tiny nonprofit. They asked me to be on the board, and then a few years later, they asked me to be the president. I, of course, turned them down several times. I think I've told you this. I turned them down because I'd have to lead board meetings. And by that time, being in the workforce, I could lead a meeting of a few people, but I'd never done it for 20 or 30. And I hadn't given a public talk, a presentation since my 20s. So for 30 years, I hadn't given a presentation. The last presentation I gave was a 10-minute presentation that took about 28 minutes. So you can imagine how much I stuttered. So I just kept on turning them down, and I finally gave in because it was, the only people they had who could do it were in their 80s, who would want to do it. So I finally gave in, and I said, okay. And I found that my speech improved again more because I was exposing myself to another, speaking situation, leading meetings, and then, and I stuttered plenty, but I really enjoyed this public speaking, and it was very short, 5 minutes. And I always had friendly people in the audience. So I just focused on those friendly people, one in the middle, one on the side, one on the other side. And I just would look at them. That's all. So what was the process? So so I realized that I public speak better than I talk. And so, and this was in a 20-second period, walking out of, after a board meeting, in fact, walking out of the building, kind of upset about the board meeting, and it hit me, I speak better when I public speak. So I said, I'm just going to this is how desperate I was. So I said, I'm just going to public speak all the time. All the time. So at that point, I was just phrasing. And I decided I was going to throw away how I spoke. I wasn't getting anywhere with that, which is quite a decision to make if you think about it. I mean, I'm 55 at the time. That's how I spoke for 50 years.
Right.
And I'm going to just speak in phrases, one phrase at a time. And then over time, and I think I told you the story that I added breathing, I added emphasis, so that it became breathe, emphasize, phrase, which was just a simple way of me mimicking broadcasters. You know, I obviously don't know all of how a broadcaster speak, but it seemed like they all spoke in phrases, they all breathe before they talk, and they all emphasize words. And they were really expressive, so I added that to it. I became very expressive. This is not how I used to talk. Okay, what was the process? The process was, first, I felt I had to relearn to speak because I was getting nowhere with my speech. And how did I do that? Well, first I made the commitment, like I said. I mean, I literally threw away how I talk. That's how desperate I was. And I mean, because I had to speak better to get clients. And, you know, so at this point, I was having little network meetings, but to get a client asking for $1 million, I couldn't do it. I couldn't say my name. I couldn't ask difficult questions. I was having trouble really asking any questions. And I was doing everything through email. Email had just come into, you know, prominence then, and I could set up meetings with email, and I could do little small talk by that time, and that was great, but that wasn't going to get me clients. And so I really had to improve my speech. So what did I do? I started by reading. I would read a couple paragraphs, and then I would talk about those paragraphs. Read, summarize, read, summarize, read, summarize.
Okay.
I honestly don't know how much time I would do it in the morning, sometime in the afternoon, sometime at night before I went to sleep, and maybe 15 minutes a shot. But I was so desperate. I was doing this, you know, as much as I could. As much as I had free time, I was doing this. And so that was step one. And then I, you know, began to, you know, with my wife. I mean, this is just the mechanics of speaking, just changing my speech. And so I began using she was the next easiest. So I had always, you know, you'll see on the internet, oh, go for it, you know, break your comfort zones and do all, you know, go on a street corner and talk about stuttering, walk up to people, introduce yourself. I couldn't do that. If you met me in person, you'd say, wow, he's a pretty big guy and he played football and all that stuff, and he seems fearless. Now, I was fearless on the football field. I was totally terrified of speaking. So I knew I was fragile. I had always, you know, had good days and then splat back to square one, like we all do, right? We have good days, we feel, oh, this is great, I can talk, and then boom. So I tried something, again, different. I was doing, and I took one small step at a time. So I went from the bedroom, you know, reading, summarizing, and then talking with my wife, who I was always able to talk with, and then my kids, but as I began what I began to call my hierarchy, just small steps. I mean, really small steps. No step was a leap, just small steps. I kind of hit a bump in the road, and I realized that if I was in a pressured situation, everything went out the window. Everything went out the window, and boom. So what do? I kind of went back to the reading and summarizing, and my goal was to make this automatic, so I didn't have to think about it. That takes a lot of work. That takes a big commitment and a lot of work. So that is the only way that I'm talking all the time. It's not a technique. Techniques will fail. But if you make it automatic, if you make it you, that's different. And so this is how I talk all the time. I don't even think about it. I am not thinking about my speech whatsoever. Now, sometimes I do. I'm in a pressured situation. Maybe I have to make a call to someone nowadays, and I'll say, whoa, a little nervous, you know. But I just kind of get myself back into, you know, this is what I do. Sometimes I even have a prompt. Did you ever see the movie Wall Street?
Yeah.
Okay, Gordon Gekko says greed is good. I sometimes say that to myself. Now, he actually doesn't say greed is good. He actually says greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Yeah. Greed is right. So sometimes, like I remember a couple of years ago, I was asked to do some presentations, 3-hour talks, 3-hour speeches, and I hadn't done it in a while because of COVID. I had done it on Zoom, but I hadn't done it in person. I found myself getting nervous. I'm up in Minnesota, and I'm supposed to give these 3 presentations over a 30-hour period, and I'm going, I don't know if I can do this. And I just brought myself back. Greed is good, because how public speakers speak, it's really exactly how I speak. They breathe. I mean, if you watch Michael Douglas in that tape, you'll see him breathe. He'll take a breath. He'll emphasize. He'll end the phrase, and he'll begin a new phrase. So that's mechanics. And then I realized as I was going up my ladder, now I had already made it automatic. That took a lot of work. There's sweat and toil, but you know what? There's joy once you start making progress, and it feels real. Now, I had always thought that I was doing better, and then I go right back to square one. I really hardly had any setbacks because I was just going in such small steps. And I made it automatic, so it wasn't a technique. Now it was me. And then I realized as I kind of went up my hierarchy that I was coming up against psychological stuff that had always been in me, year after year, 50 years of stuttering. You can imagine how much, whatever you want to call it, trauma, I don't know, psychological stuff that I had. And I realized I was really messed up, and I had no idea what to do. I was trying stuff, nothing's working. And I realized, and I tried something so crazy, so radical, but it changed my life. And I later learned that this is actually cognitive behavioral therapy, that I began to do the opposite. So if I was avoiding, I would go toward. If I was switching out a word, I would say that exact word. I wouldn't substitute. If I mean, just over and over again. And it didn't work the first time or second time, but I began chipping away at all the psychological stuff that goes with stuttering. Now, of course, I'm sure there's remnants there still, we all have stuff, but I was able to progress and keep climbing on my hierarchy. So it was a combination of the mechanics, and for me, that was a re-emphasized phrase. It was the psychological stuff, mainly doing the opposite and gradually exposing myself to, and I mean gradually, very small steps. But when you take small steps, and you have these big successes, what I learned was that no step is insignificant. No step is insignificant. That what you want to pile up is not fast progress. You want to pile up wins. You want to feel good. One win after the other, one small success after the other. And pretty soon I began expecting success. So for me, a person who always expected to stutter, always looking for the next stutter, always trying to get around the next stutter, I began to expect success. Now, this was after months and months and months.
Yeah.
Months and months and months, maybe a year, more than a year, of just really going at this. It became an adventure. Once I began making progress that I believed in, and that took a while, it became an adventure. It was like I had a machete in my hand and I'm going through the Amazon. I'm cutting down, brush. I'm cutting down the junk, and I'm pushing right through it. And it was like I was knocking down doors. Once I got into the higher rungs, it's like, where's my next challenge? Get me at it.
Bring it on.
Yeah. And it was like the most exciting thing I've ever, it was exhilarating. But the start is hard. The start, because you have no idea. Well, I had no idea. I had nothing to go on. There isn't any manual that I use. There's no guide that I use. I didn't have a therapist. I had nothing. I was totally by myself, but I was desperate.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know if, I tried stuff for decades and nothing worked, but I did something totally different, and that helped me get going. And so I'm not a perfect speaker now. I mean, I can be thrown off in a situation here and there.
I don't know.
But I can be thrown out, like if I'm traveling and something goes wrong, I'm in a foreign country, I can't speak the language, I can be thrown off now and then. But for the most part, this is me. And so it's so much hard work, but it's the hardest thing you'll ever try. But if you can make some progress, and I had no idea that I could get to this point. I was just trying to talk well enough to get some clients, frankly.
Some clients, yeah.
But so that's that.
Thanks for sharing that. That was actually, it was greater than what I thought I was gonna. I thought I was gonna hear a short thing, but you gave me some good meat and potatoes. No, but anyway, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So now I got to think of what's going to be the next one that I want to dive in and pick your brain, because you are a amazing speaker to me, and that's why I see you as a good example for the stuttering community, to grasp from. That's why I enjoy asking questions.
Well, thank you. And maybe we just want to do one next time on presentations, because it seems like, I am so impressed with people on your site and people on my site who are doing presentations. I would have never tried doing presentations, because it scared me. Well,
but yes, that would be a good topic. Yeah, that would be an excellent topic, because a lot of people have a fear in that area. And
I certainly did.
Yeah, you have now got a handle, on that. So share your knowledge.
Hey, it's been great talking with you.
Thank you
again, and hopefully some people will benefit from all this.
Right. Thank you.
Take
Talk
care.
to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.